Um, Welcome back, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you had a nice tea break. We'll now begin with our first panel session on cultural diversity, identity, and nationhood in Malaysian arts. The panelists for this session are Ms. Brenda Danker, an independent filmmaker, Dr. Keith Tan Kay Hin from the School of Architecture, Building and Design, Taylor's University, Malaysia, Mr. Tan Say Hon, an independent arts curator, and Dr. Adil Johan from UKM's Institute of Ethnic Studies, KITA. We regret to inform that Dr. Adil will not be with us today, and he has prior engagement in Penang. However, he will be presenting his thoughts in a pre-recorded video. We invite the speakers to come on stage to start the session. Each speaker will be given 15 minutes to speak, followed by a Q&A session from the floor. The first speaker is Ms. Brenda Danker, an independent filmmaker. She's an educator, researcher, film festival production consultant, and media producer in Malaysia. She teaches filmmaking and mentors a new generation of social documentary filmmakers through Freedom Film Festival Malaysia. We welcome Ms. Danker to share her thoughts.
Hello, hi, good morning. I'm a little bit nervous because Archbishop Julian is here. He used to live, can I share? He used to live across my house. So he's known me ever since, I don't know, I was a child, oh no. And I've got a friend who I sat with during Form 6 for 2 years here, whom I just bumped into her. We studied together in Tengku Dura in Seremban. Because you guys are here, I just want to say that my growing up years in Seremban was my best years. My neighbors never saw color, never saw race, never saw religion. My neighbor, Mrs. Ghani, was my mom's sister. She'll say, oh, this is my sister. My mom said, yeah, she's my sister. And growing up in the school, I went to convent school in Seremban. It was the same. We didn't even know there was a difference, between each other. It was only when I went into university, I was like, okay, this is a whole different world here. And I never knew this world existed until I went to university, where we were segregated by race. We were segregated in rooms where we stayed, in our courses, and I was quite shocked. And I think one of the ways that I tried to respond to the situation was to make films. I made a film, and which I'm not really going to talk about it today, but I thought it might be nice to introduce it because of this background and the context of meeting old friends from Seremban. I made a film called Godot. It's a film about racial discrimination at school and how students treat one another, students of different races. And it's really to start the dialogue talking about race and not just sweep it under the carpet and not just have thoughts in our minds of each other, but rather to come out and say, oh, this is what my parents said about your race, and then we can have a dialogue. So it's a film called Godot, and it was co-directed by myself and Namron, and we produced it under Pusat Komas in 2010. But today, I'm going to talk about the role of documentary films in the construction of nationhood, especially in our multi-ethnic country like Malaysia. So I'll look at the role of specifically documentary films. Godot is a fiction film, but my work is to look at documentary films, and I work with young people to produce social films. And that's what I do. I produce, direct, and I'm committed to produce films to talk about society. And I think the documentary films that I'm going to talk about today will be on films with the lens of social reality, and I'll use Freedom Film Fest films as a case study. So maybe I could start off by just defining documentary films. Documentary is perceived as authentic, it's truthful, there's reality, and it's of actuality. So documentary films contribute to the construction of nations through social and political critique. It provides commentary about the events occurring within the nation. Bill Nichols, a scholar on documentary, he says that the politics of documentary film and video addresses the way in which documentary helps give tangible expression to the values and beliefs that build or contest specific forms of social belonging or community at a given time or place. His argument is that documentary mode offers a platform through which members of a community find expression of their experiences, environment, and circumstances. It offers them an opportunity to voice their concerns and challenge some of the dominant views and perceptions in their society. The documentary film is a medium where national identity can be reimagined, sustained, and reinvented in. So if we look at documentary filmmaking in Malaysia, the films that are produced, if you look at state production, which is the government agency FINAS, it tends to fund documentary films focused on wildlife, culture, and certain kind of personalities. And then if you look at independent filmmakers, and I'm just going to look at 3 examples, recent documentaries, they tend to focus on current issues. Bo is produced by Mahi Ramakrishnan. It was produced last year. It's a film about human trafficking of Rohingya girls from Myanmar, which are forced into marriage in Malaysia. The censorship board banned a scene from Bao implicating Immigration Department of Malaysia officials in the human trafficking of Rohingya girls. It's very unfortunate. She runs a refugee film festival, and she was screening her film. The day before she screened her film, she got a call from the censorship board, and they requested her to come in and they watched the film together. In the end, there were a few cuts, but they did the censorship over 2 times. And these are all based on interviews with the Rohingya community. Another film, I'm not sure if you heard of this film, Absent Without Leave. Yes? So Absent Without Leave is directed by Lau Kek Huat. It's produced in 2016. This film recounts the story of his grandfather's experiences during the communist insurgency in Malaya. This film was banned. So in response to the ban, Lau Kek Huat was very creative. What he did was he made it available for a week online. So anybody wanted to watch this film could watch it just for that week. And within that week, it garnered over 100,000 views. This film has won major awards internationally. Another film maybe worth looking at is Lelaki Komunis Terakhir by Amir Muhammad. This film was produced in 2006 and also a banned film. It's about the early life and legacy of Chin Peng, an exiled leader of the Communist Party. This film was banned, and recently they tried to show it again at a film festival, and the ban was it was dictated that it was still banned. Unlike Absent Without Leave, he went on a creative mode, he put it online. So in terms of censorship, these expressions of questioning authority, status quo, has become risky for filmmakers. The Censorship Act is situated in the Ministry of Home Affairs. The guidelines are vague, and it really sits heavily on the discrepancy of the censorship board. My colleague, Lena Henry, was charged and found guilty under the Censorship Act for screening a film without permit. She was found guilty of a criminal charge and fined 10,000 ringgit. So every year, Documentary Film Festival, which is Freedom Film Fest, we receive threats and visits from the Home Ministry, and we face risk of similar charges. Only this year we were less troubled. And we tried to engage again with the government, but the engagement was not very encouraging. But still, it was still a far cry from previous years. Previous years, we would come up with a lot of protocols and game plans, plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. If the Home Ministry comes, what do we do? So even though we were less troubled this year, and we were in a way freer, but the act is still in place. At any point when we screen a film, if I screen that film, I could be charged for this act, under this act. I mean, it's a good question to ask then, what is the reason of censorship? Is it to protect the harmony of Malaysia's multiracial society? The authorities exert substantial control over media and can impose restrictions in the name of national security. Many film producers are very careful to not offend sensitivities about differing customs and religions, and therefore there was a lot of self-censorship within the media producers. And when Lina was charged, we usually screen in universities, UKM, in private and public universities. After Lina was charged, a lot of people became afraid. Academicians would call us and ask, do you have permit to screen this film? You're like, no, it's a university, use it for school. Students are available, you should make it a tool for education. So self-censorship has become also an issue for discussions and for films like this to be screened. Just to a very quick touch on documentaries, we face a lot of challenges in documentaries. The popular way for documentaries to get seen is at festivals. So Freedom Film Fest is an example of a leading festival for short and feature documentaries. It also has a traveling cinema program countrywide where intimate but vibrant and engaged group discussions happen and direct connections are made. There are very limited broadcast opportunities. The state-owned RTM and privately owned channels like TV3 and NTV7 rarely screen prime-time one-off documentaries. It prefers factual series. In terms of sustainability and making a living from producing documentary films rely on free community screenings organized by student groups, NGOs, film communities, and documentary-focused organizations like Freedom Film Fest. A challenge here is that at most of these screenings, despite bringing in a big audience, rarely bring in the monetary compensation. Freedom Film Fest 2018, we just held it in Petaling Jaya in October. It brought in an audience of 5,000 people in the week-long screening of documentary films, and it only collected a small ticket fee or donation from the audience. So sustainability of the field has been a challenge. But for now, there are also possibilities of working in the region. Channel News Asia works with independent filmmakers, and also specialized channels like Al Jazeera Documentary Channel do get documentary films out to audiences. We are hoping to engage with RTM. We are hoping that RTM will open up a regular night airings of local documentaries. And we hope that we can screen some of our films on air. I just want to move on to something else now, everyday lives. Bill Snickles, the scholar on documentary, says that shots visual in documentary film contributes to the construction of a society by demonstrating how the raw materials of everyday life, as caught by the camera, could be reconstructed into new order. He believes that this construction of sense of community and national identity revolves around the coordination of individual aspiration with government policies and priorities. So are all communities' identities, needs, diversities acknowledged in Malaysia? Are they shown in film? Freedom Film Fest films advocate bottom-up approach in nation building as approach that acknowledges and recognizes the individual in the process of nation building to complement the dominant top-down approach by the state. The stories in Freedom Film Fest, produced by Freedom Film Fest, are personal and individual. Yet, either individually or collectively, they tell a national story. Stories of our history, expression of the individual, and in participating of their own idea of what a nation should be. Here, I would like to share with you some of our films. I've screen captured different films produced by Freedom Film Fest from 2005. I will provide their names and a quick background of who they are. The visuals are screenshots of the documentary films, just to show you the diversity and the personal stories that I believe contributes to nation building. This is Alice Lee. She's an activist from Broga, and she fought the constructions of the largest municipal waste incinerator in Asia from being built in her village. She wasn't an activist before the incinerator came about. This is a story about Govinda Pillai, a rubber tapper whose quest is to recover his rightful wage, and he had gone through a lengthy legal process. He was a rubber tapper in the former Kinrara estate. Now it's no longer a rubber estate, it's fully a neighborhood and buildings and construction. And this was in 1973. We have done films on refugee children living in Kuala Lumpur. This is Chew Boon Chang. He's the oldest Chew resident at the Chew Jetty, Penang. He is an ex-port worker who contributed towards the establishment of the Penang port. This is Suganya. She lives in Seremban. She's a transgender who receives support from her mother. This is Majid Saleh. He was an anti-British leader in the 1940s and 50s, and he shared about the struggle for independence. This is a songwriter, Muir, who, together with Black, another songwriter, they went on a journey to try to comprehend a massacre that happened in 1985 in Kampung Memali, Kedah. This is Tija Chopil, Orang Asli activist speaking up for the rights of her community. This is Jambi, Orang Asli Seletar, a fisherman who lost his livelihood because of development in Johor Bahru. Isan, who lives in Kuala Lumpur, struggles to own a home in Klang Valley. He earns 3,500 a month. Anwar has cerebral palsy and her parents are seeking for her right to education. So these are all screenshots from the films that we produce under the Freedom Film Fest. This is Grandma Kong. She's lived in her village in Kampong Hakka, Mantin for more than 80 years, and she now faces the threat of demolition to make way of development. Oh, this is Aisha Tajuddin. She faced threats over social media because of religious sensitivity, race and gender issues. This is Pelok and that's Simo. They are both cousins who are from the Bidayo village in Sarawak. They live separate lives now because a dam has been built, and their family has been living in this village for generations, but because the dam has been built, they have to move. Penny is a visually impaired person and she lives in a very active life. Ariel is a stateless boy living in Sandakan. He goes to school in the morning and works at the dump site in the afternoon and night. This is Agnes Padan, a Lun Bawang who speaks about the need of maternity health care in Lawas, Sarawak. All these characters were interviewed in their own setting and language. So we had films in Tamil, Hakka, Hokkien, Lun Bawang, Bidayo, and we believe that these films are providing this lens of identity to Malaysia. So these are the narratives that seek to resist, reformulate, or review state-offered perspectives in Malaysia on various issues faced by the nation through documentary films. They tell a national story in their own language. Stories of our history, expression of the individual, and in participating of their idea of the nation. I guess we should also ask ourselves then, what is the national narrative? Is the national narrative that we see and what is absent from it? What are excluded from representing and the representation? I could say the national narrative is where we are progressive, we live in harmony, we live in modern times. And that is the national narrative that comes out. But why does this happen? Who holds the power of storytelling? Stories are not worth telling. Stories of the indigenous community, the Orang Asli community, is it not worth telling to the rest of the nation? Are they not considered Malaysian stories? Or stories like this will not be approved for funding or will be censored? How many films show the relationship and the interaction between races in Malaysia? And I think this is a really important question. Do our films contribute to the national and public discourse? I feel that when the audiences watch the documentary films at the festival, it has given them a sense of community, which involves a common interest and mutual respect, and a sense of obligations for one another. This involves emotion, feelings, rather than perceptions. And it strengthens the understanding of the everyday lives of Malaysians. So I would say, as a conclusion, film reflects the society that is making it. The documentary film, again, is a medium where the national identity can be reimagined sustained and reinvented in. And the narratives of Freedom Film Fest films, as a case study here, and even the documentary films that was mentioned earlier, complement the national narratives, where these stories connect Malaysian past, present, and future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Danker, for insightful views. I'll now like to open the floor for any questions. We have 10 minutes for Q&A, so to help us keep with time, request that questions are kept short and to the point. Please use the microphones provided when speaking and introduce yourself.
Yes. Hello.
Excellent job.
I'm nervous with our friends from childhood.
Okay.
I'm
No,
grown up now, but yeah,
I'm from
still a child in their eyes, I think.
Yeah, I'm from Seremban. You've done very well. Thank you.
Wow.
But I want to say just a question. You said it's difficult to get support and funding. So how do all these producers, who do they turn to? And also second question, is there any films that has been done on, religious communities, faith minority, most religions here are minority groups, no? How they have survived different challenges.
Okay, so the first question about sustainability and funding, because the filmmakers are independent filmmakers, most times they crowdfund or they come up with the funding themselves first. And then later part, when they have screenings, they will ask for donations. For the Freedom Film Fest, we work with the state government, Selangor State, who's provided a small fund for us to run the festival. And we go and ask people for money. For example, we have a great film about Sarawak. So we spoke with Kini TV. Kini TV, they lack the resources to go out of Klang Valley to film. So we say let's partner together, and we will provide you a story. But first, it will go around the festival round, and later on, Kini TV can take the production and put it up on their website. So it's a partnership that was formed. So I think we go year by year, project by project, and we approach different people when we think they may have an interest in it. Recently, we also did a workshop with the Orang Asli girls and young women to get them to tell their own stories about the challenges they face in education, in accessing education. And the funding was not easy. We wrote 5 proposals and we went around asking for the fund. But yeah, thank God we managed to get something and we ran the project. So we ran the project during the festival. We had 19 girls and young women who came. They wrote stories and then it will be produced into a book early next year. So it depends on the story, it depends on partners, and then it's project by project basis. So every year we are always speaking with people and hoping to connect. Yeah. The second question about religion and minorities. I think religion has been a really difficult topic. We have had a few topics that we couldn't handle, like dealing with the monarchy. A film dealing with monarchy and what and why we have a monarchy. Some of these things we found difficult to address, and we did not have the enough resources to make a film about it. There's also films about from people who were from a certain religion and wanting to move to another religion, but we haven't managed to make a film like that because I think it really deserves a longer time, and it really also deserves a lot of resources in terms of the different experts that we need to speak with. Yeah, and also I'm not sure, but we also need to be careful about how we go about the storytelling. Yeah, because some of these issues could be sensitive. Yeah. But I hope we can do something like that. Yeah, and maybe we can work with the church. Yeah.
Hello. Hi, Brenda. My name is Andrew. Not a question for you, but maybe just to also
Sure.
respond to the question earlier. The image that you saw in front of us, Agnes, it wasn't a religion's story, but the Lumbawangs are Catholic. So their story, even though it doesn't have like a direct reference to Catholic churches, it's about the community who are Catholics. And if you have seen the film, Agnes' mother died horribly because of the lack of maternal care in Sarawak. So I've been, if you've seen the film, because I've seen the film in October, I've seen it again in Kita UKM, I think last month. You really feel the pain of how the mother has gone through and the way that she died. Like she gave birth, and then I think 3 to 4 weeks later, she died because of ill treatment. So in Sarawak, and so these are things that is very different from a feature film. The actors live. These are documentary film that the person that died in the film died in real life and things like that. And they have been fighting for a better maternal care hospital for Sarawak for like 16 years and things like that. So just to respond and say, even though there were no direct story about religion per se, when you focus on, for example, the Orang Asli community, it's about religion too, because they have different religious practice.
Yeah.
When you focus on another community group, it's religion too, because they most Malaysians has some form of belief and things like that. Yeah, this is just a response. Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. Just to add on, actually, we film according to reality, social reality, and this is Penny. Penny's husband is actually Muslim, Chinese Muslim. So we just filmed him. He woke up and he did his prayers, and we filmed him as a reality scene. A lot of the audience were wondering, what's he doing? Because he looks really Chinese, and Penny speaks in Chinese in the film. So it was kind of like audience was wondering, but we just capture as it is. And this is the complexity of our society. There's no one side, everyone is multi-dimension. And that's also showcased in the films. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sally from Sunway, and I just want to say thank you for sharing. I've heard about you, and I'm so glad I finally get to hear you speak. Yeah, I teach visual text at my work, and I think documentary films is really something that we want to look at more instead of just fiction and film and things like that. I'm just curious, in terms of raising awareness, raising issues on marginalized groups within Malaysia, where would you say that we stand? Let's say in the Southeast Asian region, where do you think Malaysia stands in terms of actually trying to forge ahead with issues like this? If you could just share your opinion. Thanks.
I think generally the documentary films in the region is not really flourishing. However, Indonesia and Philippines, I think they do have a lot of films, short films, and they've won a lot of awards, and they also screened internationally. And I think the Indonesian films in particular tend to be very artistic, but at the same time very realistic. We've screened, this year, we screened a film about a religion that the government in Indonesia do not recognize. But it's a religion that a community have. So it was a story about this girl and how when she goes to school, she has no place to go when it comes to religious classes. And Indonesia, I think they do have quite really good films about the social reality. I think we fare a lot better than Singapore. Like maybe 500%, because the censorship and the control over media in Singapore is really tight. a lot more than Malaysia. I think we are so big, the country is so big, that it's really hard for the ministry of, the whole ministry to really discover what's happening on the ground. So like for example, Absent Without Leave was screened after election. I think it's screened 3 times now, but small screenings, maybe about 20 to 30 people, and we nearly screened it at the festival as well. But it's a banned film, but it's been screened. I think that made Amir Muhammad want to try to screen The Last Communist. Yeah, but because I think they publicized it quite a bit, so yeah, the order came back in to say that it's a banned film.
Your friendly neighbor whispered a question to me. It's connected to what I actually wanted to ask. These movies that you have just shown us, in terms of accessibility, it's not something that is accessible to the general public. But what is more accessible to the general public in more recent times would be the power of advertisement. You have a lot of advertisements that kind of promote national unity, integration. I think it was Yasmin who kind of started it off, and now people keep sharing this kind of stories, and everybody seems to say, this is how it was maybe 30, 40 years ago, and they want something like this to come back. This kind of stories. I'm just trying to understand the movies that such as these, which kind of focus on a particular issue. How do you see them contributing towards national integration? Unity that we are trying to talk about, and how can it bring about a community together to go beyond just being issue-based, but to see a kind of a larger picture for the whole nation?
So first of all the films except for this year's films are you can access it online. If you go into our website, freedomfilm.my, you can access all these films online. But to answer your question, it's a very important question, and that is part of our work. After every film screening, we have a discussion. So for example, as Andrew has mentioned, for Agnes's story, people do not know where Lawas is. When we screen this film, I think maybe 60% of the audience did not know about Lawas. You all know where Lawas is, right? Yes, excellent crowd. So it's like they don't want to know, and they don't know about what's happening in in Borneo or in East Malaysia. And what more, Lun Bawang. Do you know there's a community, Lun Bawang? There are about 20,000 Lun Bawang community living in Sarawak, and people do not know about them. So when we screen films and we have discussion and we say, Lawas is located in this part of Sarawak, and from Lawas to get to Miri, you need to travel this amount of time, this kind of road, and the community that lives here is the Lun Bawang community. So when people get to know and understand, then they are able to relate, and they are able to say that, yeah, we are actually Malaysians, and I understand now that Malaysians is not just these few races, but it comprises of all these different communities. This is one example, maybe a little bit difficult. The Orang Asli in Peninsular Malaysia, many of our audiences also do not know about them and do not know about their issues, the challenges they face, as simple as accessing basic rights, water, housing, the poverty level, and education. So when we screen a film, for example, when we screen Hak Dinafikan, a lot of people became aware that, the Orang Asli are considered Bumiputra. They were here even before the Malays had come from the Java Islands, and they are now considered backward, or they may not be progressing, or their land is being encroached. So a lot of different discussions come out, and there are a lot of realization of who Malaysians are. The Orang Asli, and Orang Asli, you have Orang Asli Seletar, you have different communities living around Peninsula. So everybody gets to understand this is Malaysian. So and when we talk a lot more about it, people get to know, and then the stereotypes becomes less. They don't call somebody a name that is considered, if you are backward, then I'll call you a name that describes the Orang Asli. So then the realization that, they are real people, they are a community, and I cannot stereotype them, and now I know who they are. So that fosters some kind of integration, when we understand one another better.
Okay, so final question from the lovely lady.
I'm Christy from Holy Rosary. I'm talking about filmmaking. Huh? I watched this Crazy Rich Asian. It's a Malaysian film. Huh? Okay, all right.
Singaporean,
Singaporean.
but
you know.
filmed in Malaysia.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. Michelle, you acted quite well. But do you? I think she wants to act in this film, The $1 Million Whale. Do you think she's a good character for it?
Aiyo. Oh, it's very subjective. Okay, I just put a default clause. I haven't seen the film. That's an easy answer. I'm not so sure. It's a fictional character. Are you saying that she's being depicted as a typical rich Asian female? Is that are you identifying her like that? And
I didn't want to watch that movie, occasionally because of her. But because, hey, come on lah, So, okay, I finally decided to go. But now I heard that she wants to be a character in the $1 Million movie. So I'm not sure whether or not she will be well accepted by the people. Because I think this $1 Million Whale movie is a very good movie to be watched by all Malaysians.
$1 Million movie? What movie is it?
It's billion dollar whale movie, yeah. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit of political movie.
Oh,
Yeah,
IMDb.
it's in the making, but the book is already out.
Oh, the narrative
But the
is
movie,
changing.
the movie is coming. So if she's going to act, I'm going to think again. Oh, should I go and watch the film? But I really want to watch the film.
She's an actress, and she's projecting in a fictional character. But I think it's really important to have an Asian female lead actress. I think they're lacking Asian lead female actresses. We tend to look more Eurasian-looking women. I don't know, that's my opinion. So I think it's a fiction story, and she's acting. So I hope her acting skills is good. But for me, a female Asian lead actress, I would always say yay, yay to that. Yeah, instead of going for the typical, looking more Western looking, or putting a man or many men, it's really good to have a diverse lead cast. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll try to catch that film.
Thank you very much, Ms. Danker, and to
Thank
the
you,
floor.
everybody. Thank you.